Is it possible to make a product commercial with only an old iPhone 6 and no other film equipment? Let's find out. Hey, how you going? Cheers for stopping by. Now recently, like most people, I've been stuck inside at home due to COVID and trying to stay productive, so I've been making product commercials. The trouble with that is you're limited to basically what you have, and that really ties into, does gear matter? Now when it comes to product commercials, most people you'd see on YouTube, they use things like a DSLR, maybe even like a cinema camera or something like that. But I thought, you know, why not challenge myself a bit? You know, I complain that I don't have the latest camera or the best lights, but there's some people out here with nothing. And so I thought, hang on a minute, maybe we should try strip everything down. Let's not use any film equipment. Let's just use something as simple as like a mobile phone. Now the rules are simple. I'm not using any film equipment whatsoever other than my iPhone and things I can find around the house. So that's no lights, no tripods, no cameras of course, lenses. The goal will be to create a short spec commercial for Bacardi. Now look at this gorgeous device, Space Gray. I think that's what it was called. We got 1080p up to 60 frames a second, 720p up to 240 frames a second, although we will not be using that. And all around quality, not good, but we'll see how we go. Now you might be thinking, hey Oliver, how are we gonna stand this up? You know, there's no tripods allowed. Well, luckily, just so happens I have a fantastic old worn leather case. You chuck that in. Tripod right there. So first up is to download an app called Pro Movie. Normally it costs £3.99, but by keeping a watermarked version, we can get it for free. This lets us dive into the settings, control shutter speed, ISO. We want as much control as we can have over our settings. I then set the camera to record 24 frames a second with a 180-degree shutter speed, which is vital if we want that cinematic motion blur. I then decided to use my table to hold the product because, yeah, it looks good. But then to solve the first issue, which is light. So normally people are just like, you've got a window there, you need to flag that off, but we haven't got anything, so I just waited till it's nighttime. I then darkened the background by placing a black piece of card behind me. But you can use anything. This could be just a t-shirt, a suitcase, anything that's black, that's all we need. We then set up our nifty little tripod and see what our first shot looks like. Which, it's all right. Not bad, but not good either. I wanted the camera slightly higher. So normally when you just raise a tripod, we don't have that. So I just grabbed a stack of books instead and chucked that on top. You see that watermark? We're just gonna let it box it in a bit more, and then, ooh, no watermark at all. I love it. Now that I have my framing right, it's time to start modifying the light. The only thing I had around me was my girlfriend's desk light, which is unfortunately very tungsten, very yellow, but luckily the iPhone kind of does a good job at white balancing, so I thought, why not just do something a bit experimental with it and see how it goes. Now you can see from these shots, I mean, they actually look all right. I'm kind of surprised. But the next step is we want it to be a bit more interesting. To do that, we can actually spray the product with a bit of water. Now, typically people just have a spray bottle dedicated for it, but in our case, we've got an old empty olive oil spray, which I've nicely repurposed into my new water spray bottle just for this challenge. I then filmed some more, and you can see the difference it makes, just such a small detail. Now we're getting a shot that actually looks quite acceptable. I then decided I wanted a bit of movement in my shot, so I went into the kitchen, opened the microwave, and actually grabbed out the microwave tray, which is a round dish with wheels on it. But it turns out this was actually awful. Don't do it unless it actually has good wheels, unlike mine. Now the images were looking all right, but the phone was working so hard to white balance it that the colors were a bit off. I then remembered a trick I once heard, which involves opening your laptop screen to a blank page and turning the brightness up to 100%. I then turned off all the lights and positioned my laptop right next to it, which gave off a really moody vibe. It's at this stage I started realizing that, we're actually getting something out of this. If you position your light on top of the subject, you can get an even better option as well. I placed my phone closer to the subject to really get some detailed shots on those water droplets. And these look quite good, actually. The rest of the time was then spent just moving this camera around, trying to get different angles with the light. I then even tried to open the drink, which worked horribly. And that was it. Then came time to edit the thing. I'm not going to lie, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing for this. I made a few different edits of things that were a bit similar to what I've made in the past, and they just didn't land. So I went back to the drawing table, looked at my footage. The thing that couldn't stay out of my mind was how grainy the footage was. I then had a realization that what if I kind of use that grain to my advantage and even add to it?
So, does gear really matter? I mean, the footage didn't look as good, it was more difficult to work with, but it has made me a better filmmaker. People want new gear to work without limitations, but it's way more important to learn how to work around them first. After all, whether it be a phone, a GoPro, camcorder, or even a $50,000 cinema camera. In the end, these are all really just devices used to tell your story. Some devices may suit a certain project better than others, but they should never limit you from creating. The best way to get better at filmmaking is not by having the latest and greatest equipment. It's by simply continuing to create day after day with the tools you have. I've learned that you can't just sit around and wait for everything to be perfect. The best way to improve is to fail over and over again. You need to embrace the imperfections, learn from your mistakes, and keep going. And to start doing this can be as simple as getting out your phone, getting out your camera, turning it on, and just go out and begin creating.
Thanks for checking out my first video. Very awkward doing it, but I'm sure I'll get better, you know? It's quite fun. If you've got any ideas for videos you might want to see, just let me know down in the comments below. And if you like what you saw as well, hey, maybe just give me a little subscribe. I don't know, people point up or is it down? Either way, maybe you should just give me a subscribe. It'd be kind of cool and it will make my day very good as well. Cheers.